All right, today we are gathering with Jasmine Henley Brown. She is an executive producer and the host of Channel Surf and The Q over on YouTube. Jasmine, thanks so much for being here, signing on a Monday holiday. How are you?
I'm so good. I am so happy to be here. Like I said, I love your content, so it's a pleasure. I would come on for Christmas for you, Gibson.
Wow, that's when you know.
Right.
Um, so we're going to talk about Traitors, Beverly Hills, and then end with Potomac. A lot going on. It's like I'm literally like I have to like read my notes to even like remember everything that's gone on these shows. I
Same.
feel like otherwise it's in one ear out the other these days.
Yeah.
Are you feeling the
Yeah.
same way?
Yeah, I am. I was just thinking that because I'm like between the reality stuff that I watch and the scripted stuff, I feel like there's just like I'm never at a loss for something to watch. And I recently started watching Southern Charm from the very beginning. So on top
Oh,
of
okay.
everything that's currently
You're
airing,
doing a big
I'm
binge.
oh my gosh. So I spend way too
What
much time in
season
front
are
of
you
my
on right
TV.
now?
Season four.
So what happens on season four? Remind me where we are.
Landon is annoying me with her little giggle.
Okay,
And
okay,
she her true colors are starting to show. Thomas and Catherine are going through their like custody thing. So he has
okay.
custody of the children. She just got out of rehab. She's starting to reintegrate into the group and she's having a lunch. I think the last episode I watched, she's having a lunch with Austin, not Austin, with Shep, Craig, and then Whitney and Cameron are joining them. So that's where
Got
I'm
it.
at.
Okay. This is classic. This is just
Yes.
that you're in the yeah, that is the probably peak of that show around that time. All right, let's jump into Traders. You
Let's.
know, there's only going to be two more episodes of this season, and like
Real tears.
it just I'm still enjoying it, of course. It's the Traders, but it is this thing where you're just sort of like in this show, the bigger personalities do get targeted, and they're more obvious people to banish. And I feel like we're at this point where I'm just sort of like, all right, Dorinda got murdered, and now it's like there's no housewives. It's just a lot of people who kind of no shade aren't very good at the game. And I'm like, I'm not bored, but I'm also not nearly as entertained as I was previously.
Private. Yeah, yeah. I feel the same. And I felt bad actually watching episode 9 because The Traitors is hands down my favorite unscripted show right now. And it was such a steep decline in entertainment value from episode because to me, episode 8 was the best episode of the season.
It was
And
good.
like, yeah, it was one of the best episodes of the series, in my opinion. And so I go from that high to, what we got with episode 9. And it's like, yeah, no shade to people who are there. I'm sure they're very nice people, but I really want to start a petition like production, do not let the big personalities be banished and murdered so early because now we get to this point in the season and it's like Rob is steamrolling and he's probably going
I
to win and
know.
that's it.
I know. It feels inevitable, doesn't it, that Rob's gonna win? And
It
like,
does.
listen, and I like Rob, and I think he's playing an amazing game, so like he
Sure.
probably deserves to win. But I
Mm-hmm.
also, it would be kind of a pleasant surprise if there was some big reveal or somebody figured him out at the last minute, just to give us another kind of thing to to latch
Yeah.
onto.
You know what would really gag me? I feel like in this past episode, Maura is the only person who like brought up the fact that she thought Rob might have been in trouble because Candace wrote his name down. It would gag me if Maura was the one who was like, "Wait a minute, we should look at Rob a little bit more because I'm low key shipping them." And so
Yeah,
for her to like take the rose colored glasses off in the ninth hour and be like, "Wait a minute." You're suspicious. I think you might be a traitor.
Tink.
That would be amazing TV.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I like Mora a lot, but she hasn't
I do.
really done much on this
No.
show,
Except
like,
turn looks.
and she's turning the looks, like no question about that. But I would love to see a big gameplay moment from her.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it does feel like Rob is running away from it. He has Eric in the turret with him now, and it feels like Eric and Rob probably knew this. Eric is kind of like nervous and he doesn't really know how to act as a traitor. He's overthinking it a little bit, so he's becoming quiet. And I
Hmm.
kind of feel like Rob is going to kind of use him as not a shield, but sort of like a pawn for him for like a week or two. And then once Eric kind of gets his footing as a traitor, I could see Rob just like having a plan for casting him aside because he knows that he can just control him. Like, is that what's your
Yeah.
read on Eric as a traitor?
Yeah, so similar to you, right? I think that Eric, out of the people that Rob was considering, I think Eric is probably the easiest to control in terms of like whatever Rob's game plan is, Eric would be down for it because I wholeheartedly thought that Eric was going to decline the invitation to become a traitor. And
You
so
did?
when I did,
But then he'd be
because just
eliminated.
I know. And then I have to think, we're dealing with celebrities and he's a musician. They want as much camera time as possible. They're never gonna say, get eliminated early. But I thought he was gonna decline it. And I was saying like if it was anyone but Rob, he might have still done that. But I think because it's Rob and Rob has built so much goodwill in the house, Eric is willing to do whatever Rob tells him to do. And I think it was the best choice for Rob. But yeah, I do think that there is a world in which Rob is like, okay, I have no more use for you, Eric, move to the side, or at the very end, at that final, like when they're
Hmm.
casting or throwing this stuff into the fire, I could see Rob almost like outing Eric in the same way
Right.
that Suri did Ari in season one. So,
Yeah, I could see that too, 100%. And then we have Kristen Kish, who I love her. She's the host of Top
yes.
Chef. Like she's so cool and smart, but she's clearly thinking it through so much. Like
Hmm.
she is like
Hmm.
thinking about this, but she's almost always been wrong this season. Like she is just picking the
Yeah.
wrong people and kind of going 10 toes down in that direction. But finally, at the end of this episode, she picks up on the fact that Eric has been suddenly really quiet because he wasn't as quiet before. And she really confronts him in a way that I was like, all right, she's finally right. And I love to see it.
Yeah, no, I love Kristen. Top Chef is one of my absolute favorite shows. She frustrated me in this scene though, because like you said, she's been loud and wrong for most of
Uh-huh.
this season. She finally gets it right, but she's missing the most obvious like clue because the reason she's suspicious of Eric is because Eric is usually always very vocal. And
Yeah.
then at this roundtable, he was quiet. Nobody, like, she's not clocking, word to Justin Bieber, that Rob had been quiet up until the roundtables where they needed to banish Lisa and needed to banish Candace. And now he's all of a sudden back to being quiet. Is
Mhm.
that not a red flag to anyone? Sorry.
It's all right. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it in that realm. I just feel like, and this is something I've talked about a little bit, which is like obviously Rob has convinced them all so thoroughly that he is like the ultimate faithful. He is
Mm-hmm.
like he picks his moments and all this stuff. And so, but I don't know if the editing has like fully conveyed that to us as viewers because that is like a point of frustration with people who are talking about the show online, which is like, wait a second. Rob voted for two traitors in a row. He sort of helped to lead the charge against them. No, and there's been all these other moments too. And for some reason, none of the people in the castle are suspecting him. Like, how is that possible? Kind of thing. And like, obviously, as
Right.
viewers, we know so much more than they do as faithfuls in the
Mm-hmm.
castle. So it's easier to say that. But it does feel like one of those things where it's like, I almost wish that editors have had done a better job at like maybe showing us more moments or like more evidence of him fully, like convincing them to the point where like genuine evidence of him being a traitor is just being completely overlooked.
Yeah, I think, like I said, he's built a lot of goodwill. And somebody actually wrote to me on Threads, or maybe it was Twitter/X, but they were saying that Dorinda was talking about how Rob was in the castle and he was so nice to everyone. She said he would
Mm-hmm.
come down the stairs and be like, "You look lovely today." And she's like, as a woman in her 60s, like that felt good to hear. So I think Rob he just got lucky with the group of faithfuls that he's with, and that like him being a genuinely nice person for all intents and purposes, right? Like we saw how he was willing to take Ron under his wing when people were kind of not really vibing with Ron. So I can totally believe in a situation like this where you don't know people that well, you don't have a lot to go on. I think that's one of the major flaws with this game, is like you're never really given any clues as a faithful as to who the traitors could be. So all you have to go on are like people's personalities. And when you
Right.
have someone who's just being like what you think is genuinely a nice person, he's kind of sweet to everyone. It doesn't hurt that he's nice to look at, right? I think
Yes.
that buys you a lot of goodwill. I don't think it's just because he's handsome that people are forgetting, to look at him. But I do think, him being a nice person and being nice to everyone has genuinely gone a long way.
He has pretty privilege. What can you say? Like
He
that is
does.
a thing that exists. You know what I mean? Um, and then we talked about how housewives aren't there, and we've lost a lot of big personalities. And
Yeah.
I will say a bright spot has been that making room for Tara and Johnny
Yes.
to blossom a little bit more, get way more screen time. And part of it's because they're suspicious of Johnny suddenly, but also like they just seem to be leaning in a little bit at this point of the season.
Hmm.
And I made a TikTok about this, but I do think that like they went into that round table and Johnny was gonna get banished. Like that was what the plan was to vote
Hmm.
Johnny. And they had that sit down before the round table where they're like, let's just come clean. Let's just say that we're best friends. Like, let's not try to hide it anymore. Like what, like we have nothing to lose. Like just fucking go for it. And you're sort of like as a viewer, you're like, and the whole time they're like, we're not good at this. Like, how are we still even here? But I don't know if it worked in the way they intended it to, but they came out and said we're best friends. And I don't know if it created like a question of like, all right, what do we do with this information kind of thing or
Yeah.
what? But Steven got banished. It wasn't Johnny. So it got some of, I don't know if it was the confusion it created, but it worked kind of for them.
It did. Yeah, it did. And I'm glad it worked because I have enjoyed watching them and like it's made
Hmm.
me more curious about them as
Hmm.
people. So now I've been watching like their TikToks and Instagram videos together
Oh,
and I'm like,
good.
they're such
Yeah.
a cute couple. Yeah. I love them as a pair. But yeah, they were able to save themselves from this banishment. And we only have what, two more to go, I think, or one regular one and then the final, right?
I think it might be only one regular one left. Because I think
Yeah.
Rob said at one, was it before? He either said there are three left this episode or the past episode. So there's either one
Hmm.
or two left.
Yeah, so I do think that, I mean, Johnny and Tara are on the short list for murder. I don't think they're going to be murdered because I think Johnny is a great shield
Yeah.
for Rob. So I do think that Johnny and Tara make it at least to like the final episode. I don't think they're going to win though. I don't. I honestly, I don't even think we need to skirt around it. I think this is Rob's game to win. Like if Rob doesn't win at this point, I would be shocked. But I do think Johnny and Sarah make it all the way to that final like fire pit moment.
Who would you deem the biggest threat to Rob winning right now?
Um, I want to be delusional and say Mora. Like in my mind, she's gonna
Right.
pull something out of her hat at the light. Like I feel like she is like thinking and like she's like taking the throwaway vote into consideration. I feel like she's like kind of compiling all of her evidence, and then she's gonna come out at the end and be like, "I think
Okay.
it's you." I had hope for Natalie. Natalie, the castle needed you, diva. I had hope for Natalie, but she is like this. She's locked in with Rob, so I don't think she is going to be it, but she is the last gamer left. So I thought she was going to be the one. But yeah, I think unrealistically it's Mora. Um, maybe Mark. Maybe Mark.
Mark's been giving nothing the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like it's pretty crazy. Like he's kind of like the Ivor of this season, where it's
Yeah.
just like you're in the final two episodes, and I can't think of one moment he's had the whole season.
Yeah, but he did when Candace was still there. He was the one, or no, was that Johnny? I might be mistaken. Remember after the first when they banished Lisa, Candace was talking to someone in that hallway and she was like that person had brought up Rob. They were like, we all trust him. But now that I'm like
I
replaying
think it
it in
was
my mind, I
Johnny.
actually think that was Johnny. Yeah. So I only said Mark because I was like, he's the only other person that kind of considered Rob, but it was Johnny, so never mind. Mora.
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
And Steven got banished, which like I do love Steven. And he seemed like a pretty good faithful, but he didn't ever quite get there. And
Hmm.
I will say he gave a great speech in the Circle of Truth at the end. So he
You
went
blew
out
it.
with a nice bang. But
Yeah.
just kind of like a casualty of the game, right?
Yeah, he did. I didn't see him taking it all the way. I know there's been a lot of discourse online about like how he should have defended himself at the round table when the evidence against him was that he and Candace had a one-on-one. And people are like, why didn't he bring up the fact that when he left, Rob came in and like Candace and Rob had a one-on-one? And to that I say, like when you're in a pressure cooker like that, it's so easy for us to be
Hmm.
couch critics and like say what these people should do. When you're in the moment, it's not as easy to think as quickly on your feet, especially if you're not a strategic thinker. And I'm not saying that in like he's not a smart person, but I feel like only gamers would kind of like take like every little interaction as evidence. And,
Hmm.
and Steven isn't a gamer. So I don't think it was wrong that he didn't bring that up to defend himself. I wish he would have, but I just don't think a lot of these people think that way.
Yeah, totally. And I also
Yeah.
think that him giving the gold to Rinna that Dorinda had observed, that to me is one of those things that like it was always going to keep being brought up because it
Hmm.
like sort of like last season with Sierra Miller, they kept on bringing up the casket thing and like every
Yeah.
week it felt like, and it's just one of those like, you know, actual moments that somebody observed that even though it didn't actually signify what they thought it could signify, it was sort of like you could they just could, it was a thing they could keep bringing up basically. And I don't think he
Hmm.
was ever going to get past that.
Yeah, when that's their only piece of like hard evidence, and I say hard
Hmm.
in air quotes,
Of course.
you know what I mean? If that's the only thing they have to go off of, like I said, they're given so little, so they do hang on to the like modicums of evidence
Yeah.
that they can get.
Yeah. All right, let's move over to Beverly Hills.
Let's.
We got the Dorit and Mauricio sit down this week.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What did you think of it? I'll start there.
Um, I I thought that Dorinda, she is haunting me. I thought I thought Dorit, went into a really unrealistic expectations. I think a lot of times when you are in a relationship and you think that you've made friends with your partner's friends, you think that they're going to have your back in the same way that they have your partner's back. And so I think her expectation was that Mauricio was her and PK's friend, and like he will come into it. And I'm not saying he didn't come into it earnestly, but I think she had an expectation that he would be more on her side than he was. And so, it was kind of a fail for Dorit. But I have been seeing people low key like act like, or they have been framing it as like, oh, this is like a romantic dinner or like lunch that they have you seen that?
I mean, people, there have been rumors about Dorit and Mauricio for years, and but at this point, it's not, that doesn't hit for me at all. I'm
Yeah, I didn't get that
like
at
maybe if this
all.
happened 3 seasons ago, but like I
Yeah.
feel like I'm past that personally as a viewer of the show.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't get that. I didn't get that vibe from them. But yeah, I think she just went into it expecting that Mauricio was going to be more on her side than he was. And he just kind of came in with like, these are the facts from what I've seen. I've been able to look at these text messages and these spreadsheets. I'm like, is this a business dinner? Like, what are you talking
Right.
about? Spreadsheets. So yeah, I think she had, expectations and they weren't met. But what about you?
Yeah. I think I think they both were sort of exaggerating to like the opposite sides of the spectrum, and I think that PK hasn't he was on the show last season, but I feel like obviously the show is an opportunity for Dorit to sort of push her own narrative because she is a
Hmm.
character on this show and PK is
Hmm.
not really anymore, and so I kind of think that sending Mauricio in basically to kind of share his point of view and his perspective on the latest in their divorce. It's an opportunity for him to challenge Dorit's narrative that the audience is like way more inclined to believe and be on her side of things. And so I kind of felt like, yes, I feel like Dorit like maybe had unfair expectations about like how much Mauricio is going to kind of like bend in her direction.
Hmm.
But I also think that he came in with some talking points from PK. And it kind of felt like, all right, no, like and I believe he's seen the text messages. I believe all that, but I don't, he's being really, he's playing down PK drinking again to Dorit. And Dorit
Mm.
has probably seen firsthand that he has been drinking more than just a glass or two of wine at dinner, like, but this is on camera. So Mauricio's like,
Right.
no, it's just, so it felt like he was pushing PK's agenda pretty overtly
Mm.
to me.
Yeah, no, I can totally see how you got there because he did seem like he was very staunch in like the things that he
Yes.
had to say. He's like, I know this for sure. Like, I'm not straying away from this narrative, this script that PK gave me. This is XYZ. So I can totally see how you got there. I think in instances like this, we've been watching Housewives for 20 years now. We've seen so many marriages come to an end and like a lot of these different battles. I always am inclined to believe the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So
Hmm.
yes, Mauricio probably did come in with his talking points from PK. Is Dorit maybe over exaggerating some of her issues with PK?
I
Probably,
believe that
right?
too.
But you know what I mean? Like we don't know. And I try not to make a hard judgment either way, but it's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate situation, is what I can say for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I believe that Dorit probably, took some liberties as well. And
Yeah.
that's again, like this is sort of the show is sort of her tool to like push that,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
so and we know how Dorit is, but I think in these divorce situations on Housewives, like I'm just like 9 out of 10 times, I'm just really inclined to be on the housewife side, like, because that's just
Sure.
somebody who we have been positioned from their point of view. And PK, there's something about him that you just personally I've never fully trusted or been convinced by.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
like,
no, no.
Dorit
I
exaggerate a little bit.
I agree with you because that these are in the hero versus villains, right? Like the housewives are always our heroes, even when they themselves are villains amongst each other, amongst every other opposing side outside
Right.
of the group. They are our heroes, so it does make sense that we are inclined to believe them more, to want to side with them more. And yeah, I've PK has been interesting. I always go to though, like, but they were married to these men for all of
Right.
this time. So then I'm also like, you know what I mean? So like I totally get it. In our eyes, they are the heroes. So yes, if I had to choose, like gun to my head aside, Dorit all day. You know what I'm saying? Dorit all day. But yeah. Yeah.
It was also interesting seeing Mauricio's, firsthand perspective on the situation because you
Mhm.
also kind of think about, I mean, him and Kyle are still really close and they talk all the time. And the whole thing has been, obviously, Kyle has weirdly sort of been challenging Dorit's actions and words and not sticking up for PK, but not sticking up for PK, in some of
Mhm.
these conversations. And this is the perspective that Mauricio has, and maybe that is part of what's rubbing off on Kyle a little bit. And not to defend it, because I personally think that Kyle should just like have accepted some of Dorit's how she's handling it and created that space as Dorit's been saying. But you can see how Mauricio being so staunchly on this other side of the spectrum has maybe influenced how Kyle is viewing the situation.
I agree with you 100% there. I have nothing else to add. You're right.
Okay. um, so, amidst all of this, Kyle and Dorit just had this huge blow up at the double birthday dinner. And Rachel's like, all right, let's get on a plane and go to the Hamptons together.
Yeah.
And first of all, I love a small group trip on Housewives. Like last season, we got the trip to Sutton's house and to see her
Hmm.
mom with Garcelle and Kyle. It just breaks it up a little bit and it puts it leaves a certain group out back in the city that they all live in, and it creates a slightly different dynamic, right? And like I think in the intimate group trips, they really can bond in a different way and have a different kind of fun. And taking one to the Hamptons, which just feels like directly Housewives core, like
Yes.
I love that we're doing this. Don't you?
Yeah, I do. I loved that they went on this trip together. I thought it was a really good opportunity for Dorit and Kyle to start to find their way back to each other and recover what they can of their friendship. Yeah, I loved this. And Rachel is just the ultimate cool girl to me. So
Hmm.
like I loved when Kyle was like, we're in Rachel's world now, and it really was Rachel's world. Like Rachel is everything,
She's
truly.
everything. And like this is like the epitome of like what she's bringing to the show. It's
Yes.
like it's legit. We're running into Donna Karen at dinner in the Hamptons and
Yes.
we're like, giving her a hug and she's going off about not her ex-husband, but her ex-husband in this speech at dinner. I'm learning to realize I love sort of an impromptu Rachel Zoe monologue of sorts. Like she sort of had one at the birthday dinner of the previous episode. She's going in, and I kind of take me to church.
Exactly. And I'm like, damn, Roger, what did you do? Because on the Rachel Zoe project, I don't remember you being this person. But you know what? She has said that he's changed so
Right.
much. And that's a
And I
part of the
buy it.
reason why. Yeah, I buy that as well. Because when she was at the dinner, she's like, when men get to a certain age and they don't have the things that they think they should have, they can start to resent the women. I'm paraphrasing that they're with. And I was like, I could totally see that happening within their relationship. But yeah, no, she's everything. You're hugging Donna Karen. And I was just like, that's the it girl. And that's what
Hmm.
to me, I think that's why I watch Beverly Hills. Like I don't know why everyone else watches it, but I watch it for the aspiration and just like to
Hmm.
see their homes, to see their cars, to see the lifestyle. And Rachel brought that for me this episode. Just I want to hang out with her.
Yeah,
I
totally. And I
really do.
don't know if Kyle and Dorit, I don't know if everybody on the cast could have convinced them to take a three-person trip together at this point, given where
Yeah.
their individual friendship is. But I've talked about how Rachel Zoe sort of adds this sort of another level to like the hierarchy in this
Hmm.
show, and that's her power to be like, okay, you guys are having a huge fight. Come on this girls trip with me. Have a hot girl summer with me, and I think it's fantastic. Um,
Same.
there's obviously this whole other factor to the Dorit and Kyle situation, which is Amanda, and Kyle on her own has been criticizing Dorit for talking about PK on camera and airing out their dirty laundry. But the Amanda factor is like she repeated something that she says kind of came from Kyle, and she's kind of refusing to like admit that she has her own opinion on Dorit and PK's breakup and how Dorit has been handling it. What do you make of the
Mhm.
Amanda factor in this dynamic?
I think that Amanda is doing what she came there to do. Like she's kind of the young, like she's there to challenge the old guard. Like that's kind of how I look at
Totally.
Amanda's place. So she's just doing what she was brought in to do. Not saying that producers told her to do exactly this, but I think she's actually fulfilling the role that I think she was hired for. And so yeah, I just want Amanda to be a little more she's a little socially clumsy, right? And so it's like you can tell she's not she doesn't care about ruffling feathers, but then she doesn't stand all the way in
Hmm.
that desire to ruffle feathers. So I want that a little more from her, but I realize it's probably intimidating. And so yeah, I think in this particular dynamic between with her saying what she said about Dorit's marriage and the whole Kyle of it all, I think she's doing exactly what she was brought in to do.
Yeah, I think that it would benefit her a lot to like admit to one thing that she's kind of
Sure.
mishandled. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like, give us the easy one. Just when Sutton is pressing her at her manifestation moment lunch, just say, "Yeah, I actually do have an opinion on how Dorit's handling this," and
Mm-hmm.
it's natural for anybody in this group to have an opinion on that because they're watching it happen. So just give us like it's sort of how I felt about Lisa Barlow in Salt Lake towards the end of the season. It's just like give us like one an admission of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I mishandled this, or I do think this way, and then you get it does so much for the rest of the things that you kind of don't want to admit to or cop
Sure.
to. So
Yeah.
Amanda would benefit a lot from that.
I agree. I think so too. I think she's just a little for as much as I think she's okay with ruffling feathers, I think she's still a little nervous about the social standing and like the hierarchy that we just talked about on the show. So she doesn't want to challenge that too much, but then she's kind of always challenging it.
Yeah,
She's fascinating to
she's
me.
sort of like her presence inherently challenges them.
Yes.
And that's why I think that she's so good for the show. Like I'm glad she's there. Do I like her?
Yes.
Not really. But I think that she's kind of she's kind of like the epitome of like somebody who you might not like, but you can still admit that they kind of are benefiting the show overall. And so you don't need to call for them to be fired because you don't like them or whatever. Like no, like them not knowing what to do with her, them sort of having her as like kind of an easy punching bag. Like it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of been good for them to be a little bit on that like, whoa, like who is this chick?
I agree. And then, as the season has gone on, if Amanda weren't there, like what would the season look like?
Exactly.
So she's like I said, there is a role that needed to be filled. Amanda came in and filled it, love her or hate her. I personally, I'm still jury's still out on her because like I said, she's socially clumsy. She says some things and I'm like, that's such a weird thing to say. And then she has a reaction. And I'm like, that's such a dramatic reaction to have in the context of what just happened to you. But then I'm like, all you really owe me is good TV. And am I always locked in when you're on my screen? Hell yes, I am. And you're pretty. I love
She is
pretty
pretty.
things.
Yep,
I
she is
love
pretty.
pretty. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, but she's just so obsessed with her image and she
yes.
clearly came in wanting it to go a certain way and wanting to bring up her business at any possible opportunity, which yes, that's part of the reason why most of these people go on the show is to promote whatever
Hmm.
they have going on. But she's so heavy-handed with it to the point where
Yeah.
like I think it's like being used against her in the edit. And
Yes.
it's just giving the other women so much fodder to make fun of her. I mean, the gift bags, and then like she had a gift bag for Kyle and she brought it to her in the after show. I don't know if you saw that. She made it a point to like bring the gift bag to where they filmed the after show months later, present it to Kyle on camera, and then Kyle had to like go through the bag like one item by one item and be like, oh, like whatever it said, like manifestation bottle, or like, oh, your book again. Oh, and it's an opportunity for Amanda to hawk her wares, but it's so and also it's just not I'm just not that kind of person. It's very woo woo,
Yeah.
manifest, this, that. Like, it just, for me, just where I come from, it's not
It's
for
not your
me.
tea.
But
Yeah. I think it stems from like an an insecurity or like a desire to like
Sure.
be perceived as important. And as someone personally, like I have dealt with that. Like when you're in rooms with people who are really important, you feel the need to like prove like I belong here. And I know she says like
That's
I
valid.
I belong in any room that I'm in. I believe I belong in any room. She can say that to us verbally, but like if you really felt like that, you wouldn't feel the need to always be kind of, shucking your importance around. So I think the reason Amanda doesn't grate on me as much as she does other people is like, oh, she reminds me of like phases of life that like I have been in before
Mm.
where it's like I need to be perceived as this important, smart person and I'm going to do, I'm going to be obnoxious about it. Like I understand that. I see her.
Yeah, no, and listen, I think she's almost faking it till she makes it.
Yep.
And I think that I totally embrace that and there's no shame around that. But I think if you really asked her, she wouldn't admit that she's still kind of faking it. Like she in her mind has made it. She is the money queen, as it says on the doormat. They showed 8 times. She is that girl, and I think everybody else can see that she's not there yet.
Yep.
Like she is not where she proclaims to be.
Hmm.
Um, so which is fine. It's just you wish that she could have 5% more self-deprecation or like of self-awareness, but I guess this is her manifesting what she sees for herself in her life. So
Yeah. Actually, when you said that, Amanda is Angel from Potomac. Like they both like take themselves way too seriously and like in their respective circles they are that girl. Like I'm sure, Amanda as the money queen when she has her students that take her courses, she is everything to them and then she gets in this group of women and they're like, "Oh, you manifest people making money like what the hell is that?" Same with Angel on Potomac. In the WAC circle, she is that girl, but then she gets on Potomac and they're like, we don't care
mm,
about that. So they're similar in that way. I just drew that comparison right now.
that's pretty. Yeah, I see
Not
that for
not one
sure.
to one,
No, but
but
I
like
see
very
that. I
similar,
see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where yeah, they've been built up by people who are off the show. Then when they come into the show, it's like,
Yep.
no, you're at the bottom of the pyramid, girl.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Speaking of Potomac, this is sort of the
Yes,
main
I'm
event.
wearing red.
There we go. Yeah, you're ready for the reunion. I really feel like this reunion is appointment television. There's just something about it that feels like there are these various factors all converging on this reunion
Hmm.
stage. It's the Wendy, it's the Karen, it's the great season they had. It's like it just, speaking for myself, I was like, this is highly anticipated for me, this 3-part reunion, and it's already delivering for me. It's the perfect kind of cross section of humor and getting actual drama addressed and petty and also serious. And it's just, it's great for me. What about you? How are you feeling
Yeah,
about it?
I historically am not a fan of reunions because they bother me in the way that the women like speak, like just the yelling and I mean we saw with Salt Lake City, Andy literally had to walk away. That's how I feel most of the time when I'm watching a reunion because I'm like I
Hmm.
can't really enjoy this because there's just too much happening. But like you, I'm like, there's some shit that we need to get to the bottom of. Okay, with this season. They had a phenomenal season. So much happened after the season. Like, yeah, I am excited for this. And someone on threads said, Sean, he said like Potomac or the reunion is such a soap opera. Like the way that they started it with like Wendy and
Hmm.
Eddie, like having this like, acting like there's this great tragedy in their lives. And like I remember when it started, I was feeling sad for them. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like I'm buying into it. And then I'm like, wait a minute, you guys did this to yourselves. Like you are here because of your
Allegedly,
own
but
doing.
yes.
Right. Allegedly
But
for
yes,
sure.
but
All
yes.
things alleged. Yeah. But yeah, so no, that was my long-winded way of saying I am sad.
Yes. So let's talk about that Wendy footage because it was interesting that they saved it for this moment too,
Yeah.
because it could have been 2 episodes ago, sort of with at the end of the Colorado trip, which was like the de facto finale. Then when we didn't get it, then I was like, all right, are they going to tack it on to the Karen interview because the Karen interview came first? But then that'd be kind of like a weird like 2-part episode where it's like 50 minutes of Karen and then like 5 minutes of them, and then it got saved for the beginning of this reunion, which I liked that. I think it was a kind
Hmm.
of great reveal to kick this off and maybe like remind us of the severity of the whole thing. But the footage did not land for me at all. There was something, it didn't really give much. It was short. As you said, it sort of positioned them as victims of whatever. And I think to me, I guess what it tells you the most is where they were 1 week after being arrested, because that's when this was
Mm-hmm.
filmed. And I think as we've seen in the sort of the more recent happenings in their court hearings and stuff, sort of around this time is when they requested for their cases to be split. But now they've asked for them to be put back together and be tried together. But it tells me where they were at that point, where in this footage, the only thing they're really talking about is their marriage. How is this going to impact us? And that's such an interesting way to bring this moment where we're
Mm-hmm.
picking cameras back up to document this post arrest. And you're talking about how it's going to affect your marriage. And I kind of wonder that if that's where they were at that time. I don't think it's where they are anymore. Like it kind of, because them separating their case is
Mm-hmm.
connected to this for me. And I don't know
Okay.
exactly how. But at that point, people were like, "Oh, like is Eddie going to take the hit for this? You
Right.
know what I mean? Or were they soft launching something with this footage?" They seem more aligned now than they maybe were when they filmed this. For me,
I think that's a good observation. I didn't know, like, I am not well versed in the law and like things that happen in court. And so when they split their, or when they wanted to be tried separately and then they came back together, I honestly didn't fully know what that meant. So I'm glad you were able to add some color to that
that's just
for
my
me.
take on it. I'm not a law
Yeah.
expert either, but
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's all interesting. I too was like one of the people who I was kind of on the train when people were assuming that Eddie might be willing to take the fall for everything. I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. And then I was like, I don't know if there is a way that they could do like the Teresa and Joe thing where like one of them, because if they are found guilty, they likely are going to face some type of jail
hmm
time. Like it might
hmm
not be that long, but I was wondering if they could maybe do them separately. So there's still a lot about this case that I am trying to dig through and fully understand. And I think it's important for me to get the information from the proper sources and not just like, you know, eh, no shade to blogs and stuff like that, but like it's really important for me to like fully understand from like the proper sources and not just what everyone else is regurgitating, because then I'm just going to be even more lost in my understanding of this. So I need to dive a little more deeper into like what all of this means. But yeah, I do think it's a sad situation all the time, but I think what is most interesting to me, and what I most look to when I'm watching things like this play out is like how the alleged um culprits are acting. And for me, Wendy is almost acting like this isn't a big deal. And that is
hmm
the most fascinating thing for
hmm
me. People brought up in this opening scene how she was kind of talking in this like baby voice to Eddie. And
the
that
voice
was,
was wild.
yeah, that was really weird. Cause I was like, what does this mean? Like, what are you trying to do? Is this a play for like, if they play this footage in court, people can see you as more innocent, right? And like more subservient. And then it's like at the reunion, though, you're acting like, oh, I will be all right. I'm going to be fine, huh? Like making light of it. And I'm like, this is
hmm
kind of serious, Wind. So,
I think
yeah.
Giselle and Ashley are right. She's talking a little, what did it say, jovially? Like it
Yeah.
was, the tone was off for me from her.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
she had this amazing season as a housewife, but this is like really to me hurting her image for me. Like it's the footage felt like acting. The pickup
Mm-hmm.
scene felt like acting. I mean, the voice, I don't think I've ever heard that voice from her. Like it was totally new. And I know it was a new
Yeah.
situation, but it just felt really put on to me.
Yeah.
And then she's the last to walk on set at the beginning of the reunion. We had to have the dramatic entrance and everyone's playing nice. And we do start by, I think they'll get much more deeper into the whole situation, but they did kind of start it off by asking, "Hey, what can you tell us?" And
Mm-hmm.
she literally goes, "I can say it's still being investigated and we've done court appearances." And I'm like, okay, like, like
Yes. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. But we did hear a couple details of like the kids were not home when they were arrested.
Yeah.
She's claiming they weren't on Happy Eddie. They weren't, everyone kind of thought they looked like crossfaded in these mug shots because they were smiling. And she explained that, she had been crying in that room. So the guy taking the photos was like, give me some more options. And that's why she smiled, which didn't really land for me,
No.
honestly.
No.
Um, and also, I don't know if you okay, let me just like explain this. She gave this timeline of, Carter, who's one of her sons, was old enough to like see something pop up on his phone before he went to sleep that night. He went to bed not telling Wendy's mother and sister, who he was staying with, um, that he had seen something on his phone, and then he woke up and they picked him up from school, and he that's when Wendy told him. But Wendy and Eddie's mugshots didn't come out till Friday morning. The news, I
Mm.
remember it so vividly. It was a Friday. It happened like at 9 a.m. that morning. That's when we found out. TMZ broke that story. So how would Carter have seen something on his phone on the internet the night before? I don't really understand that. And then this is on a Friday. They don't go to school on a Saturday. So
Yeah.
it couldn't have been that night. So something about the story also didn't quite add up for me because so if he saw something before he went to sleep, that would have been Thursday night. But I don't, that's impossible because it didn't come out until Friday morning. So then if that was Friday night and the next morning Wendy and Eddie picked them up from school, that's a Saturday. So they're not picking them up from school on a Saturday. Something about that story just didn't really make sense to me in terms of how the news came out. I don't
I
know.
agree. I agree with you. My antennas went up a little bit when she was telling that story too. Not for those reasons, because I didn't remember when the mugshots had come out, but it was the way she was telling the story. And just like, obviously in situations like this, we're looking for like every little detail. We're
Of
scrutinizing
course.
every little detail. So this might just be me like overthinking it. But the way she was telling about like how Carter like confronted her and then she's like, I was driving and he's like, where were you? She's like, and then I just held him. And I know like the implication is that she stopped, she pulled over, got out of the car, got in the back seat with him, held him.
Yeah.
But I think it felt weird to me because I was like, I think you would say that, but again, that could be just me like overthinking everything. But one thing we know for a fact about Wendy that we've seen since she stepped onto the show, Wendy is a very proud woman. Like she
Hmm.
is very prideful. I don't know if that's just who she is as a person or like culturally. I'm not Nigerian, but that's what I hear. A lot of Nigerian people are very prideful people, very proud people, in a complimentary way. So I think she would never say anything that's going to cast her in a negative light or cast her in a light that makes her look guilty. Or because if she's guilty of this crime, that means that she was allegedly scamming money to just put on appearances. I don't think she wants to be. I don't think she wants to be okay or look like she's accepting that that was the
Hmm.
case. So I just think for her defense mechanism is to just like paint herself as like this caring, loving mother. Like, I'm never going to lie to my children. He confronted me. I have to tell him the truth. I'm innocent. That's why I have my baby voice on. You know what I mean? Like, I'm crying. Like, maybe this is why me and my husband wanted to separate our cases. So, like, he can kind of take the fall for it. I think all of it is an act and a ploy to just appeal or appear as more like innocent and like you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and that's why you lead with the story. She centered her kids in recalling
Yes.
this
Uh-huh.
24-hour, 48-hour period. That also, goes in sort of the sympathy pile of like, oh,
Yes.
the kids. And it's, I mean, in one way, it's smart of her to lead with that. If she's gonna choose to show up to this reunion amid all of this, where she knows it's gonna be talked about, you come in with a plan. You come in with some answers, and one of those was clearly centering the kids in this story, which again, I
Yes.
think benefits her. But also, if you take a step back, you're sort of like, but like, it is all sort of pre-planned and what you're going to talk about and what you can and can't say, and just, I guess it just goes back to me for like the decision to even show up in general to this reunion is like, I understand all signs point to them probably needing money, and this
Mm-hmm.
you get paid for showing up to the reunion. You get paid
Mm-hmm.
for this is a paycheck, and they need it. It seems so. I don't, it makes sense in that regard. But on the flip side, it's just sort of like opening herself up to like so much that can be used against her in this situation. And she was at risk at being accused of what Ashley and Giselle did, which was say that she's not taking it seriously enough.
Yep.
And
There was no world that Wendy wasn't going to show up. Like she showed up to BravoCon, and that was kind of like fresh off of the
yeah,
the news dropping. So I her showing up to me, I'm like, absolutely. Like I said, from what we know about Wendy, there's no world where she cowers in the corner and acts like she can't talk about this. Because what she's trying to present to us is like, it isn't a big deal because I'm not guilty. Like, I didn't do it, or I didn't do this thing for the reasons that you guys think, or I didn't do this thing in the way that it's being presented. So, like, why would I
yeah,
not show up? So, yeah, it makes sense. But I think it's gonna get rough for Wendy in this reunion. Like, they played a little softball, but Ashley hit her with the 1-2 right out of the gate in the first part of the reunion, saying I only have one social security number.
yeah,
She's about to get it.
yeah. She is. She is. What did you think of Ashley saying? she said something along like she was like, I'm terrified of going to jail. And now all of a sudden we've had two women in our group go to jail. Like it's like, okay, yeah. Like what's are you that's just rubbing it in, right?
Did you see Cara Berry? She hosts Everybody's Business But Mine, the podcast. She wrote on Thread, she was like, Ashley is acting like she can catch jail from Wendy and Karen.
I mean, kind of. That's kind of what she's acting like.
She is. Yeah, it's like, girl,
Uh,
their crimes are not going to rub off on you. It's not you're not going to just start committing crime alleged crimes just because other people have like I think you're safe from the pen, Ashley. I don't think you'll
yeah.
be going anytime soon.
Well, Ashley did apologize. She said she apologized to Wendy for the Zen Wen in the pen comment. Um, and she also said she was like part of the reason why I sort of my first inclination was to kind of be so overtly shady about this whole thing was because you were smiling in your mugshot. And
Yes.
that really showed me that like maybe you weren't taking this seriously. I think she has since like realized maybe that wasn't exactly the case. But what did you think that she meant when she said that Wendy, ever since her time on the show, has had like a hidden vendetta towards the end of the episode?
Mm-hmm.
But they never really explained why she thought that.
Right.
And
Why
that's what
Wendy
we that's
thought
that. Yeah, yeah. Why Wendy? Well, that was Wendy thinking about Ashley.
right.
Hidden vendetta, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't she
and
say
then
someone told her that? Sorry. I'm so sorry
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
interrupt
Sorry,
you.
yeah. She said somebody told her that, but we don't know where that came from. We don't know
Mm-hmm.
what that was about, and that's when we get the Ashley doesn't vilify her accomplishments. Wendy says you don't have any. Wendy and Ashley says, "Well, I only have one social security number." Roll credits. But what do you think about the hidden vendetta thing? What is that?
I don't know. I wish we got a little more context and actually learned or found out who said that to Wendy or told that to Wendy. The only thing I can think of is like Wendy and Ashley used to go at it a lot, and that kind of speaks to the what Ashley said about like Wendy, when you came in, you were trying to position yourself as like better than
Hmm.
us, and Wendy says like the way you view me has nothing to do with me, everything to do with you, and I'm like, but no, Wendy, you definitely like were posturing, like you specifically were like shitting on Ashley, saying like people like you call me Dr. Wendy, you know what I mean,
Mm.
like you don't get to like talk down to them, and then when she brings it up as like an
Say you
indictment
weren't.
against you, yeah, use therapy speak to try, you know what I mean, to try to like make it seem like it's all in her head and like she's projecting. So maybe that has something to do with the vendetta.
Mm.
If there's a vendetta, maybe that's where it started for Ashley, maybe, possibly.
Hmm. Yeah, it just felt like such a vendetta is a big word to
It
use.
is.
And I just wish that we had unpacked that more. Maybe we will, because I think
Yeah.
that the Ashley Wendy thing is, to be continued. Um, so they sort of switch gears after the Wendy talk to talk about Stacey. And they
Hmm.
bring up the fact that Vanity Fair named her as one of the top performances of 2025. And it brings up this whole idea of like, okay, so like, does Wendy consider this a performance? Is this something that is she putting on for the cameras? And this was kind of a self-own, I thought, where she was like, well, look at my QVC clips. Like those are taking off, and that shows how much heart I've always had and how I've always been this way. And they were like, well, no, that's QVC where you are performing on that. And for you to be the same on Potomac as you are on that is actually kind of evidence that you are putting on somewhat of a performance, right?
Yeah, and I love when Ashley said that, and Stacey goes, "Indeed." She's like, "Yeah, actually, but I mean, hey, it's reality TV, but it's a performance for most of
Hmm.
the people
Hmm.
on there." So,
Exactly.
it wasn't that much of a dig to me. Like, I think what we've learned or what I've observed in Stacey is she seems like someone who is like kind of always in on the joke. So I think even in her performance on Potomac, like she knows that she's kind of putting on and like being a bit of a ham at times. And so like I think it's just a part of like who she is as a person. I don't really think that makes her inauthentic, right? Like I think that's just how she moves through the world. So it is
Hmm.
realistic, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that there were several moments on this reunion where she kind of got caught lying or misrepresenting the truth. And part of her skill, I think, as a housewife is like even in those moments, it's like the Indeed thing about the QVC stuff. She just will like kind of sit there and smile and like say one word, or she'll turn it into like a moment for herself that she knows can be memed, kind of, or like when she was
Mm-hmm.
like, God willing, I get another season kind of
Yeah.
thing. And it's like, well, of course you get another season, but she knows how to like turn these moments where she's kind of in the hot seat or sort of being proven wrong or, as
Mm-hmm.
potentially an unreliable narrator. And she still she's almost appealing to the audience in a way that's I think is really smart of her to do.
Sure.
But if I'm one of the other women, I'm like, well, wait a second, like, yeah, you technically might not have had a cannabis line in the like that existed last reunion, but like it was clearly an idea or something that was in the works. And using a Nigerian name, and I think Wendy's correct that it would probably was sort of like payback for the Wendy and Eddie TJ thing at that reunion. So it's like if I'm the other women, I'm frustrated, but it's also as a viewer, I'm like, I love how Stacey can basically turn anything into a moment.
I agree with you. Like I said, at the end of the day, all these people owe me is entertainment. Am I
Hmm.
entertained when you're on my screen? Yes. Do you lie? Yes. We've seen Stacey lie. You know what I mean? Like the Shia thing was interesting because I interviewed her best friend AJ, and AJ was kind of like adding some light to that. He's like, Stacey gets approached by so many businesses on a daily basis. So he's like, she doesn't ever confirm anything until she has it like signed, sealed, delivered, right? So like technically she wasn't lying, but I do agree with Giselle where you could have been like, well, I'm talking to people about a cannabis line, and for her to just be like, nope, not happening, not happening. Yeah, we've seen her lie. We've seen them all lie. Like until the pendulum is on Stacey's side right now, and it inevitably swings to the other side. So like I do think there is
Right.
a day where the audiences may tire of the perceived performance, and we'll see when we get there, I
Well,
guess.
I saw somebody say because Andy was sort of pressing Stacey a little bit on that, right? And
Yeah,
somebody was like, Andy's basically telling Stacey, don't end up like this person. And they posted a picture of Bryn Whitfield.
I saw that.
And yeah, and I was like, that's kind of accurate. I think that was kind of like there was some like hidden advice in there from Andy of
Hmm.
like, we love it, like keep on bringing it this way, but maybe add a few more layers to it just for your own benefit because
Sure.
Stacey did say she wants to be more direct because some things she says are misconstrued, and then what Ashley's on the side or dishonest,
Yes.
and that's when we get the next season comment from Stacey. But I think that she would benefit from being a little bit more direct, and not all the time because I like this version of Stacey. Of course, I think
Hmm.
she kind of perfected the formula. I think this season, but you kind of have to tinker with your formula as a housewife every season to keep people to keep yourself in people's good graces, kind of thing.
I agree. I am interested to see how she approaches next season. If she does come in with, like you said, more layers, if there's a little more, you know, clarification with the thing with Timo, or something
Yeah.
that makes her a little more real. Because right now Stacey is a character that we love, and
Hmm.
we only love characters for so long. But when we can't reach like a certain level of depth, then we start to be like, okay, well, maybe I do agree with Giselle, and maybe I do agree with Ashley, which I would never say that I agree. No, I'm lying. I've agreed. I've agreed with
I
Ashley.
also think that Tia and Stacy, there's like real energy there in a way that
Yeah.
I think that like them having some sort of feud or frenemy situation going forward could benefit both of them. And
Hmm.
they're kind of good matches. Like they both are kind of reading each other and being pretty quick on their feet in this back and forth they had. Um, and again, because I think Tia's so grounded in reality. That's kind of like why I really was drawn to her as a housewife this season. She just felt really real and genuine and authentic in who she was from my point of view. And I think for her to go up against Stacey in that regard is like kind of opposites going at each other. And
Hmm.
it could make for great TV going forward, I think.
I certainly think it could be fun because the audience likes both of them, right? Like
Yeah.
I've liked Tia's gotten really good reception this season. And so I think that is a really good battle because you don't have one person where like everyone is against them. And like it's not a villain versus hero thing,
No.
right? It's kind of like we have two kind of heroes, like people that we like and we want to see more from. So I think I agree with you. I think they are a great match for each other. Tia is really interesting too, though, because I think she's so easygoing, and that's why she's been able to like seamlessly integrate with the group, because like this was her first season, but I was like, she was like getting along with these ladies as if she had been here. And I
Hmm.
really liked that part about Tia because there wasn't a lot of friction when it came to her like integrating with the group. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see like as those relationships continue to form. I think she did have the added benefit though of coming in as Giselle's friend, because Giselle is Regina George in Potomac, and coming in as her friend, you automatically are perceived as more cool. So I think that helped her a lot.
Yeah, she didn't have that person to go up against because Giselle
Yep.
was never going to go up against her this season.
Right. Right.
and she was kind of always going to be under her wing. But I do think that Tia did a pretty good job of it not feeling like she was speaking for Giselle or being her mouthpiece. Personally, like I think that it felt like she had her own opinions, or like even just her, individual friendship with Angel. I feel like she's still defending Angel in certain respects, and the conversation does sort of shift to Angel at this in the first part of this reunion. We talk about the catfish stuff, her buying the house in Potomac. Um, there was also this really interesting moment with Kiarna and Angel where Angel was sort of like on the side apologizing to Wendy, but I think Kiarna had also been asked a question, so she sort of talked over Angel, and
Mm-hmm.
then Angel had this like deference to her, and everybody else watched that happen. They were like, "That was kind of weird." Like,
Yeah.
what do you think about that moment?
I thought it was really interesting because like Kiana was trying, like A- Angel started speaking, and Kiana is speaking at the same time. She's like, I like to answer before Wendy and everybody else, but Angel kept speaking. So then Wendy's like, Angel, speak. But Kiana kind of like took
No,
over
it's
and
my
was like,
turn.
no, I'm speaking. Yeah. And it is really weird because it takes you back to the early part of the season with the chin check thing and kind of how like Angel almost, for lack of better words, like cowered to her at the Preakness like lunch about like, oh, I'm sorry if I said the chin check. It was very different energy, and they brought that up too. So I thought that was an interesting like maybe glimpse into their dynamic. It wasn't the first time we've seen it though. Like we saw it earlier in the season. So it didn't stick out too much for me as like this is a new tale. It was just a really awkward moment. And I was just
Hmm.
like, but it also showed me like Wendy does not see it for Kay. Like she is not really seeing it for Kay.
Yeah, I don't think she does either, but I don't know. I kind of do see it for Kay personally. I think that goes
Okay.
against the grain a little bit for the most viewership. But what did you like how Angel was sort of approaching this is her first reunion. I think it's a kind of a pivotal moment for her because she had
Hmm.
such a down first season. How
Yeah.
did what were your sort of read? What was your read on how she was handling this moment for herself?
I Angel like Amanda, I want her to just stand in her truth a little bit more. Like I really wish for Angel. We didn't see her do it in the season, but I think when they brought up the catfish thing, had Angel at that table just been like, "Yeah, I've Facetune, so do you bitches." You know what I mean? Like everyone
Hmm.
here,
Hmm.
like Andy did. How she would have just stood tall and been like, "Yeah, I filtered it." That would have been the end of it. But because she was so sensitive and she's so sensitive about everything, when you're
Hmm.
in a group like this, when sharks smell blood, what do? You know what I mean? Like you are bleeding every time they like come at you with the smallest thing. So like they're gonna take that and run with it. And so I think my expectation of her, based on like how she has been postseason in her interviews, she's had a lot of energy. I thought she was
Hmm.
coming out of the gate like read, and she didn't do that for me this first half. But I said, Angel, you have two more parts of the reunion to go. You can turn this around, Angel. I feel like I'm watching a sporting event. I'm like, you can still you can still turn this around. But no, I was not impressed with how she's handled this first part of the reunion. I think she came with that same energy of just like, I'm taking everything so seriously and like, you guys have something against me. I think she could have been a little more lighthearted and a lot more sharp. A lot more sharp.
Yeah, I will give her the thing that I did like from her was she did have a couple apologies to give to Wendy, and I
Sure.
think that
Mm-hmm.
I like that she did that. But I agree, it's like she's had a lot of energy on social media, she's had a lot of energy in interviews,
Mm-hmm.
and it just doesn't feel like it matches up to that. And yeah, I
Yeah.
just don't know. I think the other women also like how is she going to convince them? Like at a certain point, like it just doesn't feel like they really need her or want her there, and yeah, I
Which
don't
is
know.
interesting because, on the flip side of that, she doesn't seem like she really cares to be there either. And I find that really interesting because I think with Angel, she has been the underdog. She's had a rough season, and audiences love an underdog. So I feel like, and I've said this before on Channel Serve, just on social media, had Angel come to the reunion with a little more bite, I think she could have really turned the audiences in her favor. And like she could have turned things around for herself in terms of like how the way that the audience reacts to her. And that might have secured her a second season. I don't know if she's coming back or not yet. I've heard rumors just like everyone else. But I think as it stands, like if we were going off of her performance this season and her performance at the reunion, I would assume that she wasn't coming back. But I think Angel there's something there that if she was to come back for a second season, I think she could have like, I mean, and anything would be better than this season. I was gonna say I think she could have a better season, but anything would be
Yeah,
better than
but
this.
no, I agree. I think that, and maybe that's where she could step into the energy more that she clearly
Yeah.
has in her, right? She clearly
Hmm.
has it in her in that regard. Um, and yeah, I agree about the underdog thing. I did feel bad for her at certain points on the Colorado trip,
Yeah.
but you're right. She hasn't given me enough where I'm like fully sort of like, all right, I'm with the Angel. I'm
Right.
not there yet at all.
Yeah.
We have two more big parts still, but I did in the catfish thing, I really did laugh when Stacy was like, I mean, I use it on my dog. Yeah,
Imagine that. Now I have to go look at photos of the dog to see if he
I
really
know.
face tuned.
But yeah, the catfish thing is the perfect example, as you said, of just like something that Angel just could have reacted to in a totally different way.
Hmm.
And she kind of just gave them what they wanted versus what she should have. But I also think that I always say this. I think Giselle and Ashley respect getting the fire back at them versus somebody who just, reacts
What?
sensitively. Last question about Angel for you.
Hmm.
There's this narrative that she's had a lot more fire for Wendy, and she kind of doesn't. It seems like she doesn't really want to or in season it felt like she didn't really want to give Wendy grace, and even when she sort of admitted that it wasn't her to make the actual catfish comment, she still sort of was able to reframe it in her own way to like still be mad at Wendy.
Hmm.
Was that something you were noticing in season that she
Yeah,
reacted
I
differently to
did.
Wendy than everybody else?
I did notice that. And I was trying to figure out like why. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't on the surface figure out like what is the reason. There was no obvious reason to me.
Yeah.
I believe I was having a conversation, and please, if you said this to me, forgive me because I can't remember who said it, but um Wendy and Angel went to the same college. Now they weren't in school at the same time, but they knew of each other.
Hmm.
And Wendy does this thing when she is like acquainted with someone, but she'll be like, I don't know them. That rubs people the wrong way. We saw it
NECA.
with NECA. Yep. We saw NECA. And I think Angel could fall into that category because like we said, she comes from like the WAG girl. She comes from people like wanting to know her and wanting to
Right.
be in her orbit. And so for Wendy to be like, I don't know her. And it's like, actually, we do because her sisters also come out and said, like, Wendy has sent condolences when their mom passed. Like, Wendy's been in their DMs, right? Like, she knows them. And so for Wendy to act like she didn't, maybe that's why Angel was just like she might have been really offended by Wendy
Mm.
doing that. And that was earlier in the season. So that just carried throughout because it's like, well, I don't know the rest of these people, but I do know you. And for you to act like you don't know me, now we have beef forever. Okay. We also know she really wanted to be friends with Giselle. Like she said, she thought Giselle was going to be her big sister. I don't know why she thought that. They had no prior interactions, but she thought her and Giselle were going to have a big sister, little sister relationship. And so I think she wanted that so badly that she was willing to be mad at anyone but Giselle. And I think Wendy was just easiest because everyone else was. No, Wendy was cool with Giselle too. I was gonna say everyone else was friends with Giselle. Wendy and Giselle were friends this season
Yeah,
too.
this
So
season exactly.
yeah.
It's certain you hearing you explain it that way. It kind of reminds me of when Bronwyn joined Salt Lake City and how she like would like make all these excuses for Lisa because she wanted to
Mm-hmm.
still be her friend and she was the cool girl in her eyes, and
Yep.
it sort of reminds me of that dynamic as well. And at
I
a certain
agree.
point, that other person gets to the point where it's like, all right, I got to stop trying. Like it's a losing battle. It's not going to happen. And
Yeah,
Bronwyn
I
did
agree.
that, and I think Angel should double down on that for herself if she wants to do it. So
If
that's
she
part.
wants to
Yeah,
recover.
that's part one of Potomac reunion. I'm excited for parts two and three. Karen's coming, Jazzy's coming in with a claim about Kiarna and her marriage. Monique comes in with something on her
Hmm.
phone. We don't know what it is. Like there's a lot of intrigue, and I'm sat these next two
I
Sunday nights.
I am too. I had Jazzy on the queue a couple weeks ago. She told me the reunion is crazy. And she said a
Mm.
lot of unexpected things happen. So I'm like, in the words of Julie Chen, is it Julie Chen? Expect the unexpected.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes, expect the unexpected.
Big Brother Queen. Uh-huh. Exactly.
Yes.
Well, Jasmine, this has been so much fun. I'm so happy I got to have you on the show.
Oh my gosh.
When and where can people watch your two series, and what are you covering right now? Do all the plugs before we finish up here.
Yeah, no, this was so much fun as I knew it would be. Like I said, I love your show. So thanks for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much.
Yeah, you guys can find me on YouTube on every social platform. No, I'm at J Henley Brown. So if you search me on YouTube at J Henley Brown, both of my series are on that same channel. You'll see a playlist for The Q. The Q is where I interview actors and reality TV stars about what they like to watch when they're not on TV. So we just sit and have like 20, 30-minute conversations about what we're watching, what we used to watch, that kind of thing. And then Channel Surf is where I recap TV with like other content creators from time to time. I also have interviews with people who are currently appearing on competition series. So right now I am doing the exit interviews for Extracted on Fox. So if you watch that show, make sure you check out Channel Surf to see the interviews with all of the people who get extracted throughout the season. And yeah, I'm covering, like I said, Extracted, The Traitors. I'm about to start covering Summer House. And I also talk about scripted TV and movies. So I think I'm going to start covering the love story, JFK
Oh, it's
Jr.
so
and Carolyn
good.
Bessette.
I'm obsessed with
Oh,
it.
I saw the first episode and I was like, yeah, I think I want to talk about this with people. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can find me everywhere at J. Henley Brown.
Love it. Yeah, Love Story is I watched all three of those first episodes back to back to back. I'm roped in. I'm locked.
Obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
Well, thank you so much for being on here, and we'll do
My
it again soon.
pleasure. Yes, my pleasure. Thank you.
I want to gab.